Hi guys, let's continue to answer more Qigong questions today. I got a bunch more from the last podcast we did Monday, and thank you for all the support. Okay, so this is a loaded one, so this one might take a long time, and I get this one quite a bit because this word is super confusing, and that is, we're doing Qigong, right? And people are asking, what is Qi? And because it's part of pop culture, kind of like the word ninja or something, it is so mispresented that I don't even know where to start. So in Chinese, we call everything qi. The weather, your temper, your mood, everything is qi, everything is energy. I guess the best translation would be energy, but in the context of Taoist cultivation and spirituality, I think some clarity might be nice. So when you're practicing Qigong, you actually know what the word Qi means from that tradition. So the best way that humans can see is usually through contrast. So I'm going to contrast it and use a lot of reference from different traditions, both modern and ancient. That way it's very, very easy to see, kind of like a graph, right? So if you look at modern quantum physics, for example, one of the basic concept that even a high school person nowadays would know, that used to be like secret knowledge at one point, was that all matter, all things that we see, people, place, and things, everything comes from energy. Energy made up matter, right? So on this column, we have energy, and then on this column, we have matter. And science say they don't really know what this energy source is at the root. So they call it dark energy, which is, like the physicists say, is just a way to say unknown energy, or energy we don't know. We know is there. We know is over like 60% of the universe, but we can't see it, we can't measure it. But through equations and logical deduction, scientists, even though they can't measure it, see it in any way, shape, or form. Even though they can't measure it, scientists claim that over 60% of the universe is this dark energy, right? Or zero-point gravity, or no, zero-point energy source. So there's different names for it, but basically unknown energy made up matter. So on this column we have unknown energy, and then on this column we have matter. Now if you look at Hinduism, they say that the source of all forms is the formless, which is Brahman, which has three qualities to it: bliss, being, or what made up matter, and also consciousness. Or so in other words, it's also saying energy made up form. And if you look at Buddhism, it says emptiness made up form. So emptiness is energy, because over 80% of an atom is emptiness, right? So energy made up form. Now if you look at Taoism, it says, they call it the unknown energy, the Tao, the mother, what else? They call it Qi, the one Qi. So there's made up to 10,000 things. So as you can see, basically quantum physics, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, they all say the same thing, generally speaking. But what distinguishes between the East and West is this. In quantum physics, it says unknown energy made up matter. But in Hinduism, they also said energy made up matter, but they also claim, 99% of Hinduism, that this energy is consciousness. It's not just some random dead energy. It's conscious. There's a spirit to it, and they call it Brahman, right? And then Buddhism's the same. It also agrees with science that emptiness or energy made up matter or form. But this energy is conscious. They call it Buddha nature. So that's the main difference between East and West. They both claim that energy made up matter, but the only difference is in the West, most scientists say this energy, they don't know if it's conscious or not. But in the East, like Hinduism and Buddhism, 100% say this energy is conscious. In Taoism, it's kind of split up. I would say of all the Taoists I've met in the last 39 years studying this stuff, I would say 80% of people think the Tao, or this one Qi, there is no consciousness in it. It's just a way of nature. But about 20% of Taoists would agree with the Buddhist and Hindu that the Tao is fully conscious. It's a spirit to it. In Chinese, called Ling or San Ling, right? So that's the only difference. Now, in science, majority of them also believe this energy is not conscious, right? But a bit of scientists, I don't know the exact percentage, do believe in panpsychism. which is an old Greek idea that, for example, the Nobel Prize winner that discovered zero-point energy is a big fan of panpsychism. So was Plato, so was Socrates, actually. And panpsychism, the Greek idea, which some modern scientists believe in, is that this energy is conscious. So if we were to summarize this even more, and the more that we can simplify it, the better it is as a framework for us to practice in. So science would say, let's say 90% of scientists believe that this energy is not conscious, 10% believe it's conscious, or 95.5% energy made of form. Buddhism would believe that energy also made of form, but this energy is 100% conscious. Buddha nature. Hinduism would say energy made of form and it's 100% conscious, called Brahman. Taoism would say the Tao, or the one Qi, or the unknown energy made of form. But probably about 80% of Taoists believe that the Tao is not conscious. It's just the natural order of things, the natural intelligence of things. But about 20% believe that it is fully conscious as a presence, which they called Ling He, or Ling. You can't really translate it. The best translation would be presence. So that's the natural framework. Now, knowing that intellectually is great. It's nice to know that matter came from form. That's great for science, great for intellectual debates, great for your intellectual entertainment. But for those that are interested in seriously studying Qigong or spirituality, most of the time it's because they're suffering. Either a bad immune system, or maybe severe anxiety and depression. It could be suicide. It could be a lot of PTSD and trauma. So people like that are suffering. Like when I was really sick, when I started Qigong, I was really, really sick. I could barely breathe, right? People that are suffering doesn't have the luxury to be entertained by intellectual ability or intellectual debate. So knowing these concepts of what Qi is, that I just use a framework to explain to you, doesn't help anybody that's suffering. It's nice to know intellectually, but reading an equation from physics, or reading scriptures and thinking that, or knowing that matter came from energy, doesn't really help you when you can't even breathe, when your immune system's shutting down, when your heart is broken, when you have a lot of trauma, right? So in Zen Buddhism, they distinguish this really, really directly. And that is, the menu is not the food. It says that Zen is a special transmission outside the scriptures, or outside words, directly pointing to the truth. And it says, look, if you're going to sit Zazen and you understand emptiness, you can burn all the scriptures. And they pissed a lot of people off in China when they said that. In other words, if you're hungry, reading the menu is not going to help you if you're dying from starvation. You have to eat the food. Likewise, if you're dehydrated, you can talk about, H2O all you want. But until you actually drink water, it's not going to help you, right? Direct experience is what relieves suffering. So when we know, whether you're a fan of quantum physics, Hinduism, Buddhism, or Taoism, we know that matter came from energy. But knowing that doesn't relieve suffering. It's not enough. Reading the menu is not enough. You have to eat the food. So religion talks about it, science talks about it, all sorts of tradition talks about it, but it won't help anyone unless you directly experience this energy. And in Chinese, we call this energy Qi. How do you directly experience this energy? And in the history of humanity, as far as that I can see from a lot of research and people I've met, only two groups of humans claim they can actually not just talk about or intellectualize this energy, but they can actually directly feel it. And that's when healing happens, when you can feel this energy. And those two groups of humans are shamans and mystics. And shamans and mystics exist, as far as people know, in all parts of the world before civilization. All civilization came from tribes. And if you look at around the world, no matter what race it is, if you look at the tribes around the world, most has some form of mystics and shamans. And the way they feel this energy is actually just two different paths. Shamans usually use a lot of music, a lot of rituals, a lot of dance, what we call magic to warm up. But the heart of their practice to feel this energy is usually through psychedelics. As a lot of study in modern time has confirmed about tribes, a lot of them, like ayahuasca and DMT, mushrooms, a lot of these tribes would claim they have touched upon this reality or feel this energy through psychedelics. So that's one way to do it, right? Mystics. Doesn't matter if you're talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, or Christian mystics. The way that mystics usually feel this energy is usually through meditation or through prayer. And those are two separate ways of doing things, but in the highest level, they're actually one thing, which I talked about in the last year's podcast, but if you like, I can talk about it again. So those are the two different paths that we can start feeling this energy. And you can call it energy, you can call it Qi, you can call it Tao, you can call it Brahman, you can call it Buddha nature, you can call it, or in physics, you can call it dark energy. It really doesn't really matter what you call it. The point is, can you feel it? Because when you feel it, healing starts to happen. And why do we bother training it to feel it? Why did we go through the dissolving process that we talked about in episode 1? Is because of the red dust. And on a future episode, I can talk a bit about the red dust and why shamans and mystics will take the trouble to train for 20, 30 years just so they can dissolve and merge and feel this energy, right? So I hope that answers your question about what Qi is, right? It's not like what the pop culture or a lot of like internal martial art talk about it. If you trace it back to its original source, whether it's Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, they're pretty clear what this energy is, right? So, anyways, see you next time. And next episode, we'll talk about the red dust a little bit, and I'll answer more questions.